talk to Ed. Need to authorize that by first. That's all I know. No, that's theirs.
We have to find somebody else if that does happen. Yeah, sometimes they go in spots and they go sleeping somewhere.
Yeah.
And they probably just didn't hear their radio. They didn't answer the radio. Probably called them all the time.
Hi.
Hey, Valerie. Good evening.
Good evening. She told me she wants to call me.
Trying to figure out the logistics. Okay, it works.
She gave me a couple of numbers.
Yeah, it would have been better if you called like earlier so we can set it up. It's not in fact you can't. We're still walking. Let him focus.
Where?
Reminder for you, so I know you're gonna forget. Do your report, because I'm on your committee. I want to bring attention to the water cutoff today. Do your report. Now I'd like to yield to a committee member, and I'm gonna ask Matt Stacy about it. He got word to put everything on time, and he refused to do it.
$708-297-68-59.
Calling Jerome.
Hello.
Trustee Henry,
Yes, I'm here.
they said you wanted to participate by telephone tonight. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of Board of Trustees for Monday, April 1st, 2019. Let the record reflect this approximately 6:38. Can we take the roll? Trustee Henry is not going to be here physically tonight. She wants to participate in this meeting telephonically. We have her on the phone now. So if you do the roll.
Trustee Muhammad?
Here.
Trustee Stubbs? Here. Trustee House?
Here.
Trustee Denton?
Present.
Trustee Pearson?
Trustee Peterson sent I think you got an email in regards, he
Yes.
wasn't going to attend tonight.
Trustee Henyard.
Present.
Okay. All right, we have a quorum, 5 members are here. And if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, if you remain standing, I'll ask Chief Dyer to lead us in prayer tonight.
Everybody bow their heads. God, thank you for allowing everyone who came out tonight. Bless those who couldn't make it. Amen.
Amen. Okay, next thing is general announcements. Any general announcements, Madam Clerk?
General announcements are for members of the board, aside from myself, Mr. Mayor.
Any general announcements? Okay, there are none. Village Clerk's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I would ask for approval of the minutes.
Sorry.
Slap you. For the regular board meeting of February 19th, 2019.
Motion to approve the minutes, February 19th, 2019.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the board minutes from February 19, 2019. Any discussion?
Yes. Madam Clerk, I sent you a note over the weekend, hopefully you saw about today, concerning minutes of item F, update on Melanie Fitness Center. Will these minutes go into the record as stated that's on our desks?
Yes, Trustee, I did receive your memo.
As I stated to you in email, I will vote no on these minutes because that is not an accurate distillation of what occurred on that particular date. So my vote tonight will be no, and I just let the public know why I'm voting no, because it's not accurate of the responses that went back, and that's for the record. My vote is no on that.
You can vote no. You can vote no when the vote is taken. No further discussion. Roll call.
Trustee Muhammad?
No.
Trustee Stubbs?
No.
Trustee House?
Aye.
Trustee Denton? Trustee Henyard?
Aye.
3-2.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay. Item B. Communications.
Yes. Mayor, you may wish to discuss on your mayor's report about the election tomorrow? Or I can remind everyone?
You can do that.
All right. Just a reminder to everyone that the actual general election is tomorrow, Tuesday, April 2nd. On the ballot will be the 3 primary winners from our February 26th election, unopposed, but also contested elections for our various school districts, 148, 149, High School District 205, and also there's our Thornton Township, our South Suburban Community College District is also up, our park districts and our library district. If you haven't had the opportunity to, you may have received some information. These are smaller, less high-profile elections. You may go to cookcountyclerk.com and under elections, and if you plug in your address, where you may have already gone, some of us, to determine where our precincts are, you can pull up a sample ballot of everybody who's on the ballot for tomorrow if you haven't already voted, like some of us who have to remind ourselves to vote tomorrow, because our local districts, I'm a child of our local districts, a product of our local districts, our library districts, so they are important. And on that note, I would just like to say that I had the opportunity, and some of you may have also, to attend the open house for the Dolton Public Library, which has been closed for many months now. The Dolton Public Library is a separate district We are not responsible. We got yelled at when we got when the library was closed. It's not the responsibility or under the control of the Village of Dolton. But the library district opened to the public on Saturday, a very impressive open house. The library will be open to the general public a week from today, next Monday, April 8th, and I encourage everybody to get back in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Engineers report. Mr. Smith is not here today. He submitted it earlier. Committee reports. Human Resources, Trustee Muhammad.
Thank you, Mayor. Here is a monthly summary for the Payment Center for the month of March 2019. The total water collections were $615,857.45, and the other collections were $368,433.04. The grand total of collections were $984,290.49. The dollar amount of water bills that are 120 days or more past due are $2,377,096.42, and that is a decrease of $80,510.25. Thank you, Mayor.
Next thing is planning. Trustee Stubbs.
Good evening, residents. This is the housing activity count for March 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2019, prepared by Ms. Denise Fields. 44 property transfer tax, transferred 91 transfer tax, 21 sales inspections, 35 as-is sales, 7 quick claim, 39 judicial deed, 167 rental license, 215 rental inspections, 45 vacant property permits, 18 tenant water deposits, 19 escrow deposits, 29 escrow release inspections, 21 escrow refunds, 5 grass board up invoices, 25 housing tickets, totaling 740 total process. Total revenue collected, $83,068.50. That's all I have.
Okay, next thing.
For housing.
The Department of Rental Operations, Trustee Stubbs.
Good evening again. This report was prepared by Manager Matt Stacy of Public Works. Public Works productivity report for the month of March 2019. Public Works has installed, checked, and repaired 20 street lights and 16 street signs. Public Works has trimmed 1 tree and cut down 1 dead tree. Public Works has repaired 19 B boxes, 3 water service leaks, and 4 water main breaks. Public Works has checked, cleaned, and repaired 4 sewers. Public Works has been out repairing potholes throughout mapped area. Public Works has worked on shut-offs for delinquent properties. We have successfully shut off 100 properties. We found 69 properties that are dig jobs. 17 properties has made a payment arrangement with the water department. We also had 4 emergency shut-offs. Public Works mechanics performed 1 job to the fire department vehicle, 3 jobs to the police department vehicle, 1 job to housing vehicle, and 14 jobs to Public Works vehicles and plows, trucks, along with miscellaneous jobs that have come into the shop. This is a reminder. Please put your garbage out the night before your garbage pickup day, along with any debris you might have. Homewood Garbage Disposal has started picking up yard waste as of today, April the 1st. Make sure your yard waste is in brown bags, not plastic, and branches need to be cut down to 4 feet sections, tied and bundled. If you have any questions, please call Public Works Department, 708-201-3240. That number again is 708-201-3240. Mayor, I would like to defer the rest of this report to Trustee Muhammad. He sits on the committee and he have a question he would like to ask.
Can I be recognized, Mayor?
Go ahead.
This is to Mr. Stacy. Sir, could you explain how the water cutoffs are done? And I understand it from my limited knowledge on that you receive a list from the water department either the day before or that day for cutoffs. Is that correct?
Yes, the water department does their list, and whatever's on their list, they send over to us.
Okay, well, you had 2 cutoffs on my block, 154th and Minerva.
Okay.
One of the homes was 15443 Minerva, which is my residence.
Okay.
And there was also a scheduled cutoff for my neighbor across the street, which would be 15442. Could you explain to me and the public and this board why my water was cut off? I'm not on any cutoff list, so when I went into the water department and asked, I was told that you were reached out to. It was apparently a clerical error, and my water, as we speak, has been turned off, and it is not on as we speak. Can you give me the update on that and what happened?
It was on, from what I was told, it was on the shut-off sheet, and they didn't just do 2 specific, they did some houses on the 5-4 block, the 5-5 block, and the 5-6 block of Minerva. So they were out up and down the whole area.
Okay.
So, however next door does it, if it's a clerical error, that would be on their side. I have no control of making up any of the shut-off lists or anything that comes from next door. So I would say, you know, you'd have to address it with them because I have no control of that.
And
All we do is we go out, we
Yes,
shut
sir.
off what's on our list.
Okay, and I appreciate your response, and I did do that. I thoroughly checked with the supervisor, I checked with the person that originates the list, I checked with the department head, and nowhere was my address or the address across the street, and we're talking about only one block, my block, 154th Minerva, was on that list. And you're saying that your crew turned off my water because my name and address or whatever was on that list for cutoff today?
Yes, it was the address, and when they send it over to us, they show the amount of how much is owed. We shut it off, that's it.
Okay, again, I'll state for the record, and there will be a follow-up on this. But according to the water department, all the persons involved, my name and address was not on a cutoff list for today. It wasn't for last week or the week before. They went back all the way to January. There was no cutoff for Dwayne Muhammad, who resides at 15443 Minerva Avenue. And I know in the past you have said that sometimes they give you the wrong address. But according to the persons working at department, my name was not even on the list. My address was not on the list. And they said the only way that that could happen is if it was written on the list. And because you receive what's called a typewritten list or a computer-generated list, and for that to happen, it had to be written in. So for the record, we will follow up on this at the next board meeting, and I would hope, Mayor, that something would happen for this type of thing to happen, because I don't know if it happens to residents on a regular, but I've never had my water cut off, and it's awfully convenient that the water's being cut off now at this time. So hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll have an answer. But I've talked with the department head, I've talked with the supervisor and the clerk that actually generates the list, and nowhere was my address on any list that was distributed to your department.
Okay. I want to remind you that several meetings ago, you said you intentionally didn't pay your water bill. And so I guess by you saying you didn't intentionally pay your water bill somehow, some way, maybe there was a follow-up and you wound up on the list.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened, but...
Well, we're going to find out because, again, as I stated, and I'll state it again since you responded, Mayor, according to the
You just asked me.
according to the department head and according to the supervisor and the clerks that work there, my address was not on the list of cutoffs. It was not on any list. but I think it was done arbitrarily, and I checked with my neighbor across the street who's handicapped. They couldn't cut his off, so they put what's called a locator marking in the street on Minerva, because they dug into the ground and I guess they couldn't find the B-box. But I would hope that an investigation is done and we can know by the next board meeting exactly what happened. But again, that's stated for the record for this council and for this public.
Okay, thank you for your input. Next, are you done, Trustee Stubbs?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson's not here. Finances, Trustee Muhammad.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance report. After reviewing the February financial statements that we want to make aware to the public and this board concerning revenues. The village received $8,919.50 in grant reimbursement for the 2017 grass cutting and board ups costs. The county has started distributing the property taxes based upon the 2018 levy. The village has collected over $726,000. $399,000 allocated to support general fund obligations, $219,000 to meet its debt service obligations, and $108,000 for payment to the City of Chicago. With the filing of state income tax returns, the village has collected over $90,000 between its municipal collections and local debt recovery programs. The general fund has collected 93% of its anticipated revenues. We anticipate, based on March 2018 collections, $545,000 in tax revenues such as sales tax, income tax, excise taxes, and utilities. Melanie Fitness has only collected 41% of anticipated revenues and has lost approximately $187,000 so far this year. On the expenditure side, the sewer fund has expended over 200% of its budgeted amount. This is in part due to a portion of the salaries and benefits of various public works employees that perform significant sewer-related work charged to the sewer fund. The water fund has expended 70% of its budget. And lastly, the following departments of the general fund have exceeded their budget amounts as of February 28th. General administration, 106%. And finally, the building department, 108%. And that's my finance report, Mayor.
Okay, Trustee Henry, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you're up next, special events.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just real brief, Council Walk. If anybody want to participate, my cell number 708-297-6859. Again, 708-297-6859. We got 2 more months left before we actually have the Council Walk. Thank you.
Okay, that's it?
Yes.
Okay, next thing, corporate bills.
Thank you, Mayor. I have corporate bills, but before, well, I'll do that during discussion. I make a motion to pay the corporate payments of register number 138 of $863,019.44 with manual checks at $12,500, with a gross payroll for March 15th, 2019 of $315,399.96, with gross payroll of March 29th, 2019 of $350,694.41. Melanie Fitness, register number 138 at $28,681.01, with gross payroll of March 15, 2019 of $5,423.35, with the gross payroll from March 29, 2019 of $6,633.35. Total corporate payments, $1,582,351.52. Can I get a second?
Second.
There's been motion and second to pay the corporate bills as stated. Any discussion?
Yes. I sent an email out to all board members and department heads. I got response only from one. And of course, that was the chief of police. But it had to do with the gas pump at the Public Works. Mayor, did you receive that?
I did.
Mayor, did you receive that email?
I did.
Okay, do we have any kind of response on that?
There's been no allegations of pilferage or misappropriation of the fuel there. I'm not sure what you're looking for, but that's one of the reasons that the dispenser was put in the way it was. I think it cost the village $10,000 to put the dispenser unit in. So each individual that gets gas from that pump has their own numbers and things to get gas there. So there's no other way to dispense it other than with the special code.
Okay, and my second question, and I'm looking for it had to do with a payment of, I believe, $15,000 to an individual, and it just described it as services rendered. Do we have any response on that one? It was also included in that same email.
I don't even know who that individual is, what the payment was for. You didn't reach out to our accounting firm?
Okay, I'll read it publicly because I thought I'd get I'll just state it for the record. This is the letter or the correspondence that was written to all board members and department heads. And there was no charge of pilferage, but the question was, what would be the checks and balances? And my correspondence reads as follows. Greetings to whom this may concern. I have questions concerning 3-page items to be paid on our upcoming board meeting, pages 1 and 2, Avalon Petroleum at $11,183.13, concerning our fuel consumption through the village-owned gas tank located at the Public Works facility. What has been put in place since my inquiry from last year that we know for sure there is no pilfered gas? When the question was asked of all department heads, there was no definitive answer to the accountability of access to this gas tank in some type of log system of all users. I believe the IT department was on top of this issue, but the outcome has not been presented to the board. Lastly, could someone explain the payment to Watson Wesley Williams for services rendered of $15,722. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated. So for the second response, if I don't know who Mr. Watson Wesley Williams is, I cannot vote for that allocation of $15,000, so I make a motion and with advice of counsel, how can we do that? Do we take 2 votes or do we vote for it minus the $15,722 to this individual named Watson Wesley Williams, and there was no description of work that was rendered?
The best way to do that is that if you're otherwise satisfied, vote yes with the exception of that line item.
That would be my motion.
No, Dwayne, you've made a motion to approve the bills, so the whole bills are in front of the board, but when it comes time to your vote, exclude the items you want excluded.
Okay, but can we just do that at one sweep, or we have to do them separate?
No, yeah, I mean, the motion's to pay all the bills.
Yes.
You'll vote yes except for line item,
I got
whatever
you.
it is, and everybody else
Got you.
will vote.
Okay. So let me amend that motion, and I make a motion to pay the bills minus the,
No. Keep the present motion on, and then when the roll call is, you will vote yes, except I vote no for that line.
I got you. Okay, so my motion stands, Madam Clerk.
On the motion,
Are we still open for discussion?
Okay, I just got some clarification on this. Watson, Wesley, and Williams is not personally an individual. It's an attorney, it's a law firm. It's an invoice from 2017. It's in reference to John Franklin versus Dolton, cases Burge and Remus, for professional services that are rendered. It's multi-page itemized list of services rendered.
Well, since you have the bill, can you apprise us, Mayor, of what's involved? Because this is a 2-year-old bill. I mean, you said it's concerning our former police chief, Franklin.
I just got it. I just got clarification from,
I mean, since you...
I can provide a memo for next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
This was a law firm that represented Franklin in a couple of lawsuits against the village that we were required to provide separate counsel because of Franklin's circumstances with the village.
So Franklin had his own lawyer and whip hand?
It was for cases where Franklin was being sued. as part, based on his Dalton duties, but he was entitled to have a separate lawyer at corporate, our corporate expense.
And this is to his attorney? This is the attorney firm?
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, I'll amend my motion to pay all corporate bills.
Okay, is there a second? Was there a second on it?
Well-
Okay. All right, it's been motioned and seconded to pay the corporate bills as stated. Roll call. No further discussion? Roll call.
And to confirm, the motion is to approve all corporate bills in the amount of $1,582,351.52 as stated on the warrant list. Motion by trustee Muhammad, second by trustee House. Trustee Muhammad.
Aye.
Trustee Stubbs.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Aye.
Trustee Denton.
Aye.
Trustee Henyard.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried, 5 ayes. Next thing on the agenda is old business. Item number A, ordinance number 19-002, amending Title 3, Chapter 10 of the Village of Dolton Code, cigarette and tobacco dealers. Trustee Pearson is not here.
Point of information, I sent that in to Madam Clerk with the assistance of Attorney Murphy and with agreement from Trustee Pearson that this would be presented, but if we could have the attorney present this and just do a summation so we can get a vote on this of the amended language that was put in there from the last meeting.
Yes, at the last meeting, Trustee Pearson had a draft of this ordinance that differed from what I recommended in a couple of ways. One, it increased the fines regarding loose cigarettes and unstamped cigarette violations. And the second, it proposed that any review hearing on a revocation of the tobacco license would be conducted by the village board at a board meeting. After discussion of this matter, we've kind of put together what, I guess you could say it's a compromise. The ordinance as drafted now has the fines that Robert wanted, but it's got the process that I recommended.
So I make a motion to approve ordinance number 19-002.
Second.
Yeah, okay. It's been motion and second to approve ordinance number 19-002, amending Title 3, Chapter 10 of Dalton Village Code for cigarettes and tobacco dealers. Any discussion?
One question, Mayor, if I could be recognized. I know we discussed on the third violation, the revocation of business license. Is that included as well?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the effective date?
The effective date is now. It will not apply to the proceeding that's pending now. It will apply to future violations.
Oh, and was that the calendar year? Or from the time of the violation?
12 months consecutive.
We phrased it in 12 months because rather than in a calendar year, it'd be a rolling, if it was first one in May, it'd be 12 months from that May conviction.
Okay. All right. No further discussion. Roll call.
Trustee Muhammad.
Aye.
Trustee Stubbs.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Aye.
Trustee Denton.
Aye.
Trustee Henyard.
Aye.
Motion carries, 5 ayes. Next thing on the agenda for old business is the override of the mayoral veto of ordinance number 19-003. That's amending water shutoffs 767-2A of the Dalton Village Code. That's Trustee Henyard's thing. Motion. We don't get it.
Just need a motion to override.
I'd like to make a motion to override Mayor's veto ordinance number 19-003.
No, you vetoed that last meeting.
I did.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Was there a motion in a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call.
Bear with me.
Why don't,
Discussion on this?
Madam Clerk, do you have the ordinance there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, ordinance number 19-003.
Okay. Can you read that?
I do not have your veto, because that was at the last meeting. I can pull it if you like.
No.
Okay.
What they're trying to override.
See,
Okay. Actually, I put in a mayoral veto on this. It was ordinance number 19-003, an ordinance amending section 7-6-7-2A of the Village Code to prohibit water shutoffs on Friday. Whereas section 7-6-7-2A of the Dolton Village Code, red tagging and shutting off water, provides for the termination of water service in the event of non-payment. And whereas the mayor and the board of trustees have determined that shutting off the water service on Friday creates an unreasonable hardship on residents who intend to pay their past due water bills because the village is not staffed to turn the water on over the weekend. Now therefore be it ordained by mayor and the board of trustees of the village of Dolton, Cook County, Illinois, in the exercise of its home rule authority as follows. Section 1, amendment, section 7-6-7-2A, Dolton Village Code, red tagging and shutting off water is hereby amended by adding the following subsection E, limitation on shut-off days. Limitation on shut-off days. Water shut-off shall not be limited to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Absent an emergency, there shall be no shut-offs on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Effective date. Their ordinance shall be enforced in effect upon its passage, approval, and publication as required by law. And that is what I vetoed. And so now, so I wanted to veto this ordinance simply for the fact that we are in a financial condition with the city of Chicago. And by the time these shutoffs are done, or a person receives a shutoff notice, they're already a minimum of 3 months behind or more. And the last time we put in effect that we were shutting off water 7 days a week, and it's a shame that we have to do that to force payment. We had the line wrapped around the building. In a couple of days, we took in $2 million. So, you know, I just really don't see, I don't really see why we shouldn't turn off water on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays in the condition that we're in and the payments that we have to make to the city of Chicago. As I said, that once those shutoffs are done, our people are eligible for shutoffs, they're already delinquent for several weeks and several months. So I just don't understand this ordinance to try to make some headway to get in to pay the city of Chicago, because every day that we're delinquent with Chicago is additional penalties and interest. So. Anyway, there's a vote on the floor.
Are we in discussion?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Well,
I'd like to be recognized after Trustee Henyard, please.
okay, go ahead, Trustee.
So we're good.
Go ahead, Trustee Henry.
Thank you. One thing I want to say is, President, when you speak, I do listen. As a matter of fact, the entire board listen. You say band together, we band together. We had 6-0 votes, and I didn't feel that the mayor should veto that. Once the board have agreed on something, it should have stood and signed. Yes, the mayor states that we made all this money. We made $2 million in one day. What happened to the money? Why didn't that money go directly to the city of Chicago? And number two, I believe, residents, that you guys should have an opportunity to come and pay us. We should not be turning your water off on a Friday, on a Saturday, or on a Sunday when you have no opportunity to pay us. Now, we open on Saturday, you had an opportunity to go pay the bill, so you're not 3 days without any water. I thought that would be fair. I don't think anyone should suffer. We're not just the executor. We're not God. We all human. People make mistakes. Sometimes people make it to pay their bill. Sometimes people are at work when you turn their water off. But when they get home, they have to sit a day without any water. So we all human. I think that order should stand. The board agreed with me, and they all voted unanimously, and we all stood strong with basically keeping your water on and not shutting it off on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's it. Thank you.
Well, and I'm going to comment on that again, we're under a court order decree to pay the city of Chicago. There's no other village and no other utility company that does not shut water off on Friday, or do not shut the utilities off on Friday. They do shut the utilities off on Friday. And usually when that happens, is the resident or the customer has been notified that they're eligible for disconnection. I feel the humane side too, but when you're talking about being delinquent for a couple of months or more, and the individual has a right to come in and make payment arrangements, and that's not done, I mean, it's absolute. We have to create revenue here to pay our bills. And, we're under a strict court order. And if we don't comply, there's going to be further penalties. So we got to collect the revenue. We have to collect the revenue. I don't see where those 3 days, especially when the customer has had several weekends where they have received water and they're eligible for disconnection, I just don't see where that extra 1 weekend would give them any more relief. It's whether they cut it off that Friday or they cut it off that Monday. So that was my logic behind it. We have to collect the revenue. We have to do business a different way and do business the way we should be doing it, so we can pay our vendors. So it's up to the board this time. But I'd like to revisit this after the new board comes in, because we just have to do business a different way.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead,
Mayor?
trustee.
Okay. First, I agree 100% with trustee, and to add to this, I have my bill that I paid today, that when they cut off my water. Apparently, I'm going to give it that it's a clerical error. I'm just going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm one of the persons that was blessed to be able to come in and drop $489 and pay the what's called the waiver fee, which I believe is $75. Our infrastructure is not together over there. The superintendent of public works stated himself on more than one time that they have given addresses that are the wrong addresses. They have to go back, turn the water back on that they turned off. Mayor, you're conflating two things. And I'm intimately involved with this, along with Attorney Murphy and also former finance person Yvonne Rettman and Trustee Pearson. We have an agreement with the City of Chicago. It's totally separate from this. The levy was raised for one large payment per month from the village of Dolton to the City of Chicago, goes directly to them from our taxes. We pay our regular bill on a monthly basis, which is a little over $200,000 a month. This does not affect it at all. What we have to do is get our infrastructure together across the street at the payment center, so that we don't continue to have these mistakes where individuals' water is cut off by accident or clerical error or whatever. But this ordinance simply waives Friday. They don't cut off water Saturday or Sunday. The public works generally works Monday through Friday, unless, like it says in the ordinance, it's an emergency, or as you mentioned before, some type of a water main break. But generally speaking, it's Monday through Friday. All we're doing is waiving off Friday so people can have water for the weekend. Thank God my water was cut off, but according to policy, I'm assuming my water will not be on until Wednesday, because they say it's 48 hours that your water is actually turned back on once it's cut off.
That's incorrect.
Well, as I was stating, according to what I was told, and I did this today, and if you would like to examine the stamp on the receipts, I was informed today that when your water is cut off, it takes 48 hours to turn your water on. So naturally, if somebody's got their water cut off on a Friday, they may not get their water cut on until Monday. So I understand the importance of this, but it's not like we're losing money. The money is going directly to the City of Chicago from the county come August of this year and every August for the next 10, 15 years, along with the regular payment that we pay every month to the City of Chicago. And it's not about generating revenues. It's coming directly out of the water fund. Has nothing to do with generating revenue, because that money is strictly for the payment of water, sewer, and garbage under the water fund.
It has to be collected. The revenue has to be collected. And then why when we put out that we're turning off water 7 days a week, Why do we have an influx of residents and customers coming in paying their water bill? It's a shame that sometimes you have to put a threat out there of disconnection, whether it's in the other utility companies do it too. Gas company, light company, they send you a disconnect notice. They give you a certain period of time when it's going to be turned off. And if you don't pay it or make payment arrangements, they turn it off.
Well, Mayor, we're not giving any kind of notice. I have my bill right here. The only notice we get is on the side. Any past due balance is subject to shut off, and additional fees for reconnection will apply. We no longer send out any notices on red paper, just as Commonwealth Edison does, just as NICOR does. So again, it's a matter of correcting the infrastructure of our payment center to make it right. But in the meantime, we're not losing any money for that one Friday to waive them getting their water cut off so they won't have water for the weekend. So my vote still stands yes to override Mayor Veto 19003.
Just say we're going to revisit this. After the new board get in, we're going to revisit this because we have to get our house in order. We have
nothing to do with revenue. That's the water fund.
It does have to do with revenue.
The water fund, which
Yes.
you've been restricted to even go in and touch.
Okay.
Mayor, might be recognized.
Go ahead.
I just want to state this. As being the chair of the water department, it's so messed up. You have so many errors where water was being turned off and it shouldn't have been turned off. I recall one time myself standing over there while they called Public Works to turn this particular gentleman's water off because he was doing a repair. He paid to $75. His mother was in the hospital. She was getting out the next day. He came back to pay another reconnecting fee of $75, and they gave him the flux about turning the water back on. Finally, before the lady got out the hospital, the water was turned back on. Or you have confusion with the estimated bill. A lot of seniors don't understand that the bill is being estimated when they're at the doctor's office or wherever they're at. Didn't let nobody in because most of the meters are located on the inside as opposed to the outside, and that's not their fault, that's our fault. And therefore, they receive an estimated bill, they pay the small portion, and 3 months later, they get this high bill and can't afford to pay it. So we have to look at what we haven't done either. This is a two-way street on that. So I'm in favor of not turning the water off on Friday because it's so many discrepancies when it comes to the billing, and then not to receive a cutoff notice because, as the other trustee stated, I don't receive personally read notices. But you receive red notice that this is your final warning, that your water is going to be cut off. To my understanding, we don't give those to the residents. So I stand with not turning the water off on Fridays.
I think there was so much interference by some of the trustees over in that water department. There was a lot of confusion over there. And when this new board gets in, there's going to be some changes. I'm going to be very honest with you. And we're going to get this thing right. I asked to hire water meter readers so we wouldn't have so many estimated bills. That was voted against. We didn't hire the water meter readers. You know, I mean, we're going to be on the correction path next time. Any more discussion? No more discussion. Roll call.
On the motion to override the mayor's veto of ordinance number 19-003, Trustee Muhammad.
Aye.
Trustee Stubbs.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Aye.
Trustee Denton.
Aye.
Trustee Hendren.
Aye.
The
5.
motion carries. Okay. Motion carries. 5 ayes. Next thing is mayoral veto, resolution 19-R, 007, approving First Amendment to redevelopment agreement with BP Capital.
Want to read those?
Yeah, but the ocean,
I just need to read them, or not.
the ocean, the override. Do you have the ordinance here?
I do, but I messed it up.
Okay, don't worry about it.
I have BP.
Okay.
I need the,
Okay, I hereby veto resolution number 19R-007, the resolution approving First Amendment redevelopment agreement with BP Capital Corporation. The village shall not be involved in any further matters with BP Capital. Invest in Dolton is a bad deal for the village. In addition, it is wrong for an outgoing board to attempt to bind the incoming board for some 2 years. Long-term agreements need to be made by the board, which will be responsible for administrating and funding any such matters. I respectfully request that the village board uphold my veto at the next regular board meeting. So, this one is on for the following board meeting, correct?
Yeah, that'll go back before the board next meeting, and then
Okay.
same with item D.
Right. Next thing on the agenda is item D, approval of the insurance broker consultant agreement with Insure Source. My mayoral veto. I hereby veto the action of the board approving the agreement for professional services for the insurance broker consulting agreement, Cliff Taylor Insure Source LLC. This agreement obligates the village to retain the broker services with this firm for another 2 years. It is wrong for an outgoing board to attempt to bind the incoming board for some 2 years. Long-term agreements need to be made by the board, which will be responsible for administering and funding any such matters. I respectfully request the village board to uphold my veto at the next regular board meeting. I'm signing this today. And tendering it to the clerk. Item E, approval of block-by-block program. Trustee Henry. Trustee Henry, you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve block-by-block program.
Second.
Okay, it's been a motion to approve the block-by-block program, and seconded. Any discussion? Exactly what is the block-by-block program?
Pretty much it's a program designed to have the community get more involved in purchasing the properties that the village will obtain, the vacancy. Pretty much currently now it's one side is for owner-occupied, the other side is for investors.
Okay.
question,
Okay.
if I may.
Go ahead. The clerk, Madam Clerk has a question.
Yes, I noted that Trustee Henyard, in previous description of the BP Capital Program, noted that it was exclusive, that the agreement with BP Capital was exclusive, meaning that the village was not free to purchase properties outside of that agreement with BP Capital. So I would ask the village attorney to clarify whether that is the case.
Well, that's what we have with BP. Whether that agreement's going to continue is a different story.
Sure.
After Trustee Henyard presented that outline that we're talking about, I put together a document which I thought explained it so that everybody on the board would understand what it is. That document, I recall a few meetings ago, the board tabled it. So now I don't know what the board's voting on.
The block by block was tabled to the planning committee.
Well, what's going on is it's in your package. I don't know what game y'all playing right now, but it's in your board package, Attorney Murphy. And then also you have the outline of the block by block on your desk.
Right, which I included Trustee Henyard.
Okay,
So
so
my-
that's what we're voting on. So what's the question?
My first question was whether or not we could do it at all because of the BP Capital Agreement, which, as you said yourself, was exclusive, meaning that we were bound to work with BP Capital and no other organization. But as a procedural matter, the village attorney reminded me that this matter was tabled by the board to the planning committee, and it has not yet been reported out by the planning committee.
One of the questions I had, I think, remembering a portion of this block-by-block program, you wanted to have the investors pay $1,000 for the property and then have the residents pay $5,000. Wouldn't you think if would go forward, it should be switched around where the residents would pay the smaller amount rather than the investors? Yes.
That's not what that paperwork said. You just read and cited very clearly, and I'm pretty sure you read that correctly.
I did.
It says dollar houses, free houses, and the other side says $5,000 for the house. And it breaks it down.
It was what?
For the free and the dollar. I'm going to explain it because you're saying you don't understand, which I don't believe, but...
You can believe whatever you want to. Tell me how I believe.
Okay, I'm telling you, I'm speaking, so I'm telling you what I don't believe, because man, you went over it several times.
We did not.
Mayor, I even came in your office, and we talked. So I don't even understand how you are saying what you're saying, that you don't understand what's going on. It says $3 and $1, and you just said $1,000. But I'm trying to explain it to you so you can understand. So the $3 and $1 houses is strictly for investors, because I felt, when I wrote this, that the investors had the money to do the work. So those are the houses that need the most work. So say, for instance, it need a roof, it need plumbing, electric, whatever it needs. That might cost over $5,000. The investor had the money to do so. That's why we started with a $20,000 minimum that person had to show in their bank account. Now, as far as the $5,000 houses, we put that at that amount for the simple fact that those were cosmetic. That it need a bunch of work where residents couldn't get their hands on $1,000 to do like paint or a floor or something like that, something real simple. So that's why I was structured that way. I didn't flip it because the majority of the time a resident, they working, they got a household to take care of, so they can't afford to come up with, say they need $10,000. They got to put a furnace in, a hot water tank. They can't come up with that kind of money that quickly.
Well, I'm going to say here's another avenue that we can gain revenue, and I want to help the residents, but we giving away everything that could bring us some revenue in. You know, I don't see how this is going to work without getting BP Capital, you know, the exclusive right for control of all these vacant houses.
Well, number one, you just vetoed the BP Capital deal, so that's number one. So you keep saying how it's going to work with them. That means they're not there. You vetoed it. Number two is to benefit community. With the $3 and $1 houses, we do a split. We make money, meaning the village. So say, for instance, a house sells for $100,000. We will walk with $25,000, and they will walk with $75,000. It's a split. So that's how the village make money off of the profits they're giving to investors. And it's not strictly to one investor, it's multiple investors. So say the lady next door want to invest, she can invest. Somebody kid want to invest, if anybody can invest. It's not just one company that's getting all the profits in Dolton.
Well, you know, I believe in the last couple of meetings I talked about these residents investing in Dolton. They see a house is vacant. They take control of them. They're the investors. But when there's when there's an opportunity for us to gain more revenue, I think we should try to do that with the outstanding obligations that we have, the outstanding debt. You know, just as BP Capital has taken control of these houses and they're allowing people to rehab them, and then that first one sold for $147,000 that needed very little work. So, you know, they profited probably close to or over $100,000 on that one house. If we did the same thing and we just say we took control of 100 houses and we had them rehabbed and we sold them, and then we get the $100,000 per house. You know, if you sold 100 houses, you're looking at $10 million.
But Mayor, the issue is me and you are saying the same exact thing. You just said that you want community to benefit, you want us to make money. We're saying the exact same thing that you just said out your mouth. And not only that, we cannot do real estate. That's why we unloaded all our real estate when you and I came in office in 2013. So why would we take on a project when we can't fix the water department thing? We got a lot of fires.
If there was, I'm going to say, if there was not so much interference here, then maybe we could fix it.
Yeah, there's no interference. It can't just be your way or highway. You
it's
have
not.
To work with the board, the body. Everybody sit down and talk like we normally do. Everybody will be fine. Everybody don't even vote on everything I want, but I still go and talk to everybody. But that's what you have to do, Mayor. You talk to the entire board and just not get mad with them when they don't do what you want.
That's not true.
And I think
that's not true.
I think things will work.
That's not true. There's been so much interference in here. The attorney has wrote a note to these trustees, and yourself included, in regards to the interference that they've done, in regards to the interference that he have done, that some of this board has interfered with all these departments.
Okay, Mayor, we already know about that. Let's get back to block by block. Basically, I put a motion up to approve block by block. I think I do have support of the board. The community do want it. A lot of people waiting on the properties. I would like to move forward with that program, and I would still like to work on that. So, and I would appreciate your support.
Well, I'm not clear on it.
Haven't been answered.
Okay, that's fine.
Madam Clerk has also said there's a lot of questions that hasn't been answered. As far as I know, my last correspondence.
My trustees will vote. I talked to the board, which is the trustees, and I got their opinion. I got whatever they wanted, and we settled it.
Even
Mr. Mayor.
the village attorney, in talking with him, he wasn't clear on it. He told me this afternoon, earlier today. So, I mean.
I talked to Murphy as well. I talked to the attorney as well about this. And he wrote what he wrote, and I told him that was fine. That's how it came up again. And I added that, and I attached the attachment, which is the qualifications to it. Everybody was fine. So that's what I'm saying. It's only you that's really speaking against it. So I don't understand.
Well, just take a look at this. Okay, I'm reading this, what you have here. Free houses / $1 houses. Investors. Owner-occupied houses, $5,000.
Yes.
Okay? Now, if you want to help the residents, why don't you flip it around? You know, these investors are going to make a ton of money on these houses. And you got here the qualifications for the investor. Proof of funds are $20,000. License and bonded contractor, 90-day permit, housing inspections, additional fee if the inspection fails, escrow of $1,000, lottery for investors. Pull the number, lottery for the investors. 75% they get, and we get 25%. The investor must sell the property. Now, on the owner-occupied side, or so Dolton resident side, qualifications: you must be a Dolton resident. You must live in a house for 5 years. You must complete repairs within 90 days. 90-day permit, house inspections, additional fee if inspections fail, escrow 5. This is basically what you're offering the investor, but the investor gets the house free or for $1, and the resident has to pay $5,000 for the house. Why don't you let the investor get the house free? I mean, I'm sorry, the resident get the house free or $1 for the house versus them paying $5,000 and the investor gets off with $1 in a free house. That doesn't sound like you're trying to help the resident.
No, Mayor, you got it wrong. Then how do the village make any funds? The whole point of an investor is going to park their money somewhere. So they're going to park their money for, say, 60 to 90 days, right? So normally when a person puts their money in a project, they want to see a return on their money. So why would I give them home ownership at $5,000? What I've done was encourage the neighborhood to save their money, which everyone has, to buy a house. They have a home ownership and don't have no mortgage no more. Where they do that at, Mayor? No one does that. No one offers community that. That's affordable. That's attainable, reachable.
City of Chicago has offered houses for $1, offering lots for $1 to the residents.
Okay.
You know, so
and they have same structure.
Okay.
And what's crazy is I sent this out for you and everybody to get their input. You're the only one that ain't gave your input on it.
Basically, the qualifications are the same here, other than the $500 difference in the escrow for the investor and the $20,000 minimum that you have to have, the investor, which has to be qualified. We need to verify that they have the $20,000. But my thought process: if you're trying to help the resident, why are you charging them $5,000 and charging the investor, giving them the house for free or for $1?
I just explained it, man.
I don't think that's being conscious to try to help the resident. So anyway, this board.
At $5,000,
Okay. How are we going to give these houses away when there's an exclusive agreement with BP Capital that has the houses?
That's my
And
question.
I just answered that. You just vetoed that, did you not?
Yeah.
I just heard you read that
But
Thursday.
I just vetoed it. And I'm expecting to override on it.
Okay, Mayor, but you don't know what will happen in 2 weeks, right?
Well, then why don't we put this off to 2 weeks then? Why don't we table this again and wait and see what happens on the veto?
Just told you, I spoke to the entire board. The entire board has agreed. I don't have any issues. Only you do currently. So that's why I'm asking, can we call the roll for my vote?
Okay, now does this call for the expenditure of village money?
The money will come out of the proceeds. What I did try to do was get Murphy to do it, but Murphy told me he didn't want to do anything with removing the back taxes off of the property.
Why?
You should ask him that. He's an attorney. I ain't never seen an attorney turn down any money. So ask him why. Because I thought we was all on the same page. I met with him and Denise, and we all were structuring the program. It was moving time. I've been announcing this since October, and then now the red flags, all these people are against this, against that. Like, come on.
Where do we get the houses from? How do we get the houses out of possession of BP Capital?
Again, you just vetoed that, so that means that they cannot get any more properties. The last board meeting I did a lot, which was giving them 6 properties, but it's not them going after any more vacant properties. So I don't see why we can't go after the vacant properties then.
Well, Madam Clerk told me they had 30 properties and going.
30 properties and going? What do you mean?
They continue to get these properties.
Mayor, can I be recognized?
Go ahead, trustee.
I think the question, I'm kind of following, BP Capital currently has an exclusive agreement. That was the one that was standing for a while.
Yes.
And would there need to be an amendment to this motion that BP no longer has exclusivity, or can we do this in conjunction with BP Capital? I think that's maybe what the clerk's question is, or the question on the floor.
Go ahead, madam.
It is my question, trustee, but as trustee Henry pointed out, the mayor just vetoed the amendment to the BP Capital Agreement, but the BP Capital Agreement, and that's what I was seeking clarification for, as it's my understanding from reading it, and trustee Henyard's own statement, that as long as that BP Capital Agreement stands, and as of now it still stands, including a First Amendment, which provides for penalty clauses if the board reneges on that agreement. I don't see that this board, not we, I will take trustee Henyard's correction, I don't see how this board has the ability today, unless it chooses to override the veto with BP Capital for the First Amendment, and then chooses to cancel the original contract. I don't see how it has the authority to enter into any more agreements, to enter into any acquisition of the properties while those agreements still stand.
So, Attorney Murphy, I would like to
Yes,
ask if I
please.
can for feedback.
I don't have the BP agreement in front of me, so I can't give a definitive opinion on that one way or another. I don't know why this is a matter of urgency at this point, instead of looking at the matter.
Well, I will go back to my clerk's role and point out again to trustee Stubbs, although she seconded this motion, that she herself and the rest of the majority of the board had tabled this to her committee. So right now, it's in her committee.
It's amazing how the clerk got so much to say.
Yes.
He's not a vote for me. I talked to the people that vote for this, which is the 6 trustees that sits up there. I got their opinion. I put in whatever people wanted that have to vote on this. It's amazing that you guys, meaning the clerk and the mayor, is trying to shoot down a program that I've been advocating forever. How y'all saying that now I'm making it as urgency? I have not. I've been advocating for this since October of last year, as you guys know. So stop saying that and let's take roll, do a roll call, so we can vote for it, and we'll see what my vote's like. My votes don't pass, then guess what? It dies.
Well, I don't want to put us in a more liable state. If there is a if there is a penalty clause in the BP Capital Agreement, and we stand to put ourselves liable for violating that agreement, and this board, some members of the board, majority members of this board has, and you, as you well know, Trustee Henry, has not agreed to take the exclusive right of those vacant houses out of the hands of BP Capital. You initially voted for it, and since that time, I don't know what, you saw the light or whatever, so it wasn't a good thing for us. And we've asked members of the majority of this board that has voted to keep BP Capital in here and asked them to reconsider, and they have reaffirmed that they stand fast where they voted and how they voted to keep BP Capital in here. So if by voting on this agreement puts us in a liability state, we may in fact be sued.
And it does not, Mayor. And the board members that you're speaking of also said that we can coexist, which I still agree and believe we can coexist. So I would appreciate it if we can call the roll so we can move forward with our agenda.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
Attorney Murphy just said there's a penalty clause in that BP Capital agreement. So, I always try to err on the side of liability if we're going to get sued, because even if we get sued and we win, we still lose because we have to pay the attorney fees. So so the best thing to do is just follow the guidelines. Go ahead, Trustee Stubbs, go ahead.
There is a clause in the BP Capital's paperwork that was for the 6 houses that you just vetoed. That was for the 6 Invest in Dolton houses. To include, that was to amend those 6 houses with BP Capital for them to rehab those 6 houses and give us the $30,000 back.
And the water bill.
Well, I thought you said it was 2 different programs.
It is.
It's trying to.
Okay.
I'm talking about what you just, is that what you just vetoed?
I vetoed the Invest in Dalton and the BP Capital agreement, but as we went,
First Amendment.
the First Amendment, and as we went forward, you kept saying, well, there's 2 different programs. So why is BP Capital agreeing to give us $30,000 on Invest in Dalton side when supposedly it was 2 different programs and that attorney represented those 6 Invest in Dalton houses and not BP Capital? Why would BP Capital agree to pay those if there was 2 different programs and BP Capital wasn't in charge of the Invest in Dalton ones?
Can I be recognized, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay, to answer your question, the attorney that had the taxes removed for those 6 properties, he's been paid and he's gone. One of the criticisms or the objections by some persons was we lost $30,000 because it was $5,000 per property times 6 is 30. BP Capital said what we'll do is that we will pay the Village of Dolton that $30,000, plus we would pay the water bills that were due on those properties, because in judicial sales, the village actually carries that water bill. So it's very clear in that First Amendment what is done. It has nothing to do with the other properties that the clerk is responding as. I think she said it was 30 and going or 30 and counting. We're talking strictly about the 6 properties that you vetoed tonight that BP Capital was willing to pay that money back to the village of $30,000 plus paying the back water bills on those 6 properties only. That's what the amendment was. And there was a fee that would be charged to the village if the village, or I should say the mayor, would interfere with the operation of getting those 6 properties rehabbed. And according to what I understand, I've been told that those houses, those 6, which are mostly on slabs, can be rehabbed in 30 days or less. That means we can put families in those homes 30 days or less. But it's been vetoed tonight, and as the trustee is saying, we can have programs that coexist. We're home rule. We can do that. We agreed to that, and I agree with the trustee that we need to take the vote.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may be recognized again.
Go ahead.
I am referring not just to the First Amendment, which creates questions regarding penalties, because there's a First Amendment to the original BP Capital agreement. Originally, there were two agreements, one, for reasons which escape me, one with BP Capital, which pretty much allowed BP Capital, as I read it, and have read it, to acquire on behalf of the Village of Dolton any vacant properties it sees fit, and that is ongoing. Second was the Invest in Dolton, which identified a program to acquire other properties, which this First Amendment narrows down to 6. So we have two different programs and a First Amendment that, for one program, that amends the first program. So, yes, we're all very confused. My question is whether or not the first agreement that was approved by the board, vetoed by the mayor, that veto was overridden by the board, so it still exists, which by my reading allows BP Capital the exclusive right to acquire properties on behalf of the Village of Dolton. Is that not a conflict with Trustee Henyard's proposal? In other words, if you pass block by block, you're going to be in conflict and expose the village to liability by BP Capital, which has shown no reluctance to sue this board in the past.
May I be recognized, Mayor?
It's no conflict, and Mayor
No,
Kay,
because they're talking about South
You're no
Suburban Land Bank coming in, so what's the difference?
We got an attorney up there, and we have our board.
Hypocrisy.
I'm the ones that I have to convince on whatever it is I'm advocating for. Stop confusing everybody with all of that.
Exactly.
I talked to the attorney. If the attorney
That's right.
felt that I had a conflict, an issue, or anything, I'm pretty sure Attorney Murphy would have advised me of that earlier. So would you stop?
Yes.
Mayor, I will advise you, can you call the roll? We've been on this long enough.
Yes.
I would like to see what my votes are. If I have them, I have them. If I don't, I don't.
You can advise me to take the roll call as many times as you want. You can advise me to take the roll call as many times as you want, but as long as there's discussion, we're going to discuss it.
Okay, what else is there to discuss? We all just talked about it.
Well,
Now we do-
Mayor, can I be recognized?
Let's move forward.
Why don't you listen? And then you can find out what's going to be discussed. Go ahead, Trustee Mohammed.
Okay, just quickly, the hypocrisy from the two elected officials on this board. You're constantly saying how we can coexist with South Suburban Land Bank when there is no issue with them coexisting with us, but now all of a sudden there's an issue coexisting with the block-by-block housing program. So I'm saying let's take the vote either up or down and let's move forward. Thank you, Mayor.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead, Trustee.
Before we take the vote.
Go ahead.
I spoke with Attorney Murphy this week, and I asked him also about the program about block by block. Now, because we have a contract with BP Capital, and I don't want this village to be sued either, because we have the standing contract with BP Capital, and then we came back at the last board meeting to amend that contract to include the 6 houses. The mayor tonight vetoed the 6 houses, but
No 6 houses?
the amendment that we did at the last board meeting, you vetoed that part tonight, to not include that. But we still have a standing, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Murphy, we still have a standard contract with BP Capital for the houses. Am I correct?
Yes, what I don't have the contract in front of me, and what I don't know the answer to without looking at it, is does that contract give BP the exclusive right to act on behalf of the Village of Dolton to acquire these properties and extinguish the property taxes and then remarket them? Because that's what the block-by-block program is. I just don't have the BP agreement in front of me to review. But there's 2 BP agreements, right?
Yes.
The main BP agreement, where right now we're looking at an inventory of about 35 houses they've bought.
39 houses that they took possession of,
Okay.
that they're getting ready to sell. The first house here is sold for $147,000.
Free reign on the contract.
Okay.
And free reign on the contract to continue to take in these houses.
So I'm looking at the 6 houses that's already paid for.
It's already paid for.
The taxes have already been paid for to remove the taxes, and those six.
All of these houses. All of these houses, 39 houses.
The 39 houses the village did not pay for to remove the taxes on it. BP Capital paid out of his pocket to remove those 39 houses and to rehab them. The 6 houses, the Invest in Dolton, 6 houses, the village paid for $30,000. Am I correct, Attorney Murphy?
No.
No.
BP program is that this board designate,
I'm talking about the Invest in Dolton. Who paid the $30,000?
I don't know.
The village did. The village paid the
That's
The
30.
village ultimately pays for
That's what
everything.
The village paid the $30,000,
That's
and
what I just stated,
and
Mayor.
the attorney said he was charging $5,000 per house to do the lien, the abandonment and/or demolition lien of those houses, and it really. And I discussed this with him when he was here. It's only going to really cost you about $75,000 for an ad and 300 court fees, and you want to charge us $5,000 per house to do. And he would have went more. He would have went further if it wasn't questioned. It was so outrageous, really, what he charges. Now you're saying that it was 2 different programs. BP Capital is willing to come in and reimburse us for $30,000.
Yes.
Why don't they give us some money off these 39 houses where they're getting ready to make?
You just vetoed that.
But you know you guys gonna override it.
You know, there you go, predicting the future.
But you didn't veto
Okay.
I'm looking at history.
it. You vetoed it once upon a time.
Yes.
Tonight.
Okay. Go. We can take the vote,
Thank you.
and we'll do what we have to do after the board gets in. Go ahead.
On the motion to approve the block-by-block program, Trustee Muhammad.
Aye.
Trustee Stubbs.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Abstain.
Trustee Denton. Trustee Henyard.
Aye.
4.
4 ayes.
Explain this one.
Motion carries. Okay. New business. Ordinance number 19-000. Authorizing and providing for the issue of its $1,400,000 general obligation bond, Series 2019 of the Village of Dolton, Cook County, Illinois, for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds and approving a tax escrow agreement. You want to explain this, Attorney Murphy?
Dwayne, you want to?
I thought the mayor, he got it on. I'd love to hear how we want to pay bills doing more bonds, but you, attorney, or the mayor can take this.
Well, this is
Enough debt.
This is the same program that the board has adopted in the past to issue a bond and have a levy in order to pay the amounts that are due to Homewood Disposal. That simple.
I think we need to explain this to the residents, because you got a lot of mumbling out there, and I want to make sure they got information. We're borrowing $1.4 million, is that correct, of a general obligation bond? Is
Yes.
that, and it's being paid back how?
Through taxation.
I know, but is that a tax levy?
Yes, of course.
Which means that the tax have to be raised again. I make a motion to table this and let the new incoming board
Second.
vote on this, because I don't want to raise the taxes of these residents anymore with mismanagement of paying water, and now we're talking about another bond coming in.
You already raised the taxes, don't you remember?
Yeah, because of misappropriation of
remember?
funds of water not being paid for over a year, Mayor.
Right.
That's why we had to do
Well,
it.
the board had
Because
control
under your
over that, not
administration,
me.
since
The
you
board
brought it
had-
up, under your administration, the
board
water
had-
bill had not been paid for over 1 year. And if you multiply $200,000-something $1,000 a year, you can see why we were in debt to the city of
We're in
Chicago.
debt because of you,
Okay.
and you
We have
voted against
public-
everything
for
and
those who
interfering in
think it's-
everything.
for those who
Now,
think
this has
it's
been
funny-
tabled, and we're not going to discuss it any further.
Oh, so
Next
now you don't
thing,
want to discuss it. Well, let your new board deal with this, because I don't think we need
On
to
the
raise
roll
these
call
taxes
by-
anymore.
got it all screwed up
It's been
now, that's why
tabled.
we have to.
On the roll call by Trustee Muhammad, second by Trustee Stubbs, to table ordinance number 19-007. Trustee Muhammad.
Aye, 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 aye.
Trustee Stubbs.
Aye.
Trustee House.
No.
Just 2 more meetings.
Trustee Denton.
Motion carries.
I'm not done.
No, I'm sorry, Trustee Henry.
Trustee Henyard.
Hello?
Okay, we'll call her an absent. So we have
Okay.
3, 1, and 1. So I guess motion to table passes.
Because Mohammed voted 3 times, yes.
Trustee Muhammad voted 3 times?
You may think it's facetious, Mayor, but the burden on these taxpayers
I
is
recorded him
overwhelming.
once.
And for you to think it's funny and your cohorts to think it's funny, I know when I got my tax bill, it was nothing to laugh at.
Trustee, I
that's
recorded
right.
Trustee Muhammad once, Trustee Stubbs once, Trustee Denton once. That's 3. Trustee House was a
Motion
no.
passes.
Trustee Henyard was absent.
So.
Motion to table carries.
Okay, motion to table carries. Item B, termination of employee 7483. Attorney Murphy?
This is a matter we spoke about in last meeting's closed session. This is an item we talked about in last meeting's closed session, where the closed session consensus was to give advice and consent to the termination of the employee who's identified only by those numbers. And so per our current ordinance, a motion is in order for advice and consent on the termination.
Is there a motion?
Is there discussion?
Has to be a motion first.
Motion to move forward with termination of employee.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and second to move forward with termination of employee number 7483. Discussion.
Yeah, may I be recognized, Mayor?
Go ahead.
It's interesting how we now want advice and consent of the board to eliminate or terminate an employee, but when this board has asked constantly, can we get advice and consent when it comes to department heads? And this individual, now you're asking the board for advice and consent for termination. And oftentimes, the reason why you have advice and consent from the board so that some type of vetting can be done, so we can eliminate having to terminate employees because of no advice and consent, no vetting of employees. So it's quite ironic now tonight that you need advice and consent, Mayor Rogers, to terminate the employee, but when advice and consent was as previous, you responded by saying, well, the advice and consent is right now, I'm bringing this person on. It just seemed ironic to me. I have to go on the record to state that.
Yeah, thank you for your response. But no other town has advice and consent of the board to make terminations. And this matter was discussed with you at the last closed session, and you agreed with it. Now you want to come and make a mockery of this, if you will, a grandstand. So you were fully advised when the council was there, all the board members was there, and you gave your opinion in regards to this termination. So I don't see what you're trying to bring forward now.
Well, my statement stands, sir. As I just stated, the advice and consent should have been on the front end and not just the back end, just like when you've made these other hires. Right, you want a roll call, absolutely.
On the motion to terminate employee identified as number 7483, motion by Trustee House, second by Trustee Muhammad.
Aye.
Trustee Muhammad, aye. Trustee Stubbs?
No.
Trustee House?
Aye.
Trustee Denton?
No.
Trustee Pearson absent. Trustee Henyard absent. We have a tie. Mayor?
Aye. Item C, trustees vote on the release of executive closed sessions minutes.
Can I be recognized, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm asking for the vote from the elected officials here to release the minutes from our executive closed session that you all aren't privy to. And what we do in this vote, the clerk would come up with the minutes that was stated during our tenure here as trustees, and we could vote on those items that should be released. Now, some items are confidential, but in my opinion, for the sake of transparency, I think that the public should know those things that pertain to the residents when it comes to our money, our tax dollars. So I make a motion that these trustees tonight vote on the release of the executive session minutes tonight. And then on the second part, if the clerk would then release those minutes to us so that we can vote on what should be confidential, that should stay as private, and what should be public. I make that motion. Can I get a second?
Hold on.
Order, please.
I believe, or the appropriate procedure is for the board to review the executive session minutes in executive session first and make an executive session determination as to what can be released to the public and what should remain private for reasons of confidentiality, labor, litigation, etc. We can't release them first and then decide what can't be released later.
I agree, but tonight it would be the vote to get the process started. Is that correct?
Well, that's not the way this motion reads. The process is for the board to meet in closed session, I guess, at the next meeting.
Well, I make a motion that we go to closed session tonight to do a consensus vote so that it can be, because it's on the agenda. I move that we do it in closed session to get the consensus vote. I thought it has to be done publicly. That's why I had it put on the agenda.
But what minutes? I don't know what minutes are ready.
Well, the clerk would know better than all of us what minutes should be released that this board, under our 4 years or so, can release.
Yes, I would.
It'll take time.
Oh, yes.
Is there a motion?
Attorney Murphy, is that the right language? That we go to closed session to do the consensus vote for the release of the minutes?
I don't know that the clerk has any minutes that are available, closed session minutes that are in draft form that's available for you to review.
Well, if we make the motion to vote tonight, and then at the next board meeting, maybe between now and then, if ever, that she can have some of those minutes available.
Well,
Or are we saying those minutes can never be released to the public after the trustees go through them?
of course not, but it's a minutes by minutes determination. We talked about that in the past. So if the board wants to make a motion to direct the clerk to make available closed session minutes, that would be the appropriate motion, but they have to be looked at first in closed session.
I agree, and that's my motion.
Okay.
I just think the public should know.
Okay. Any more discussion? Go ahead, trustee.
I guess I'm confused a little bit. How is this any different than what we're on tap to do now? Because my understanding, or my belief at least, I would say is that the clerk would prepare the minutes, we would review them, approve that they be released, and that would happen. Is there something different? Am I wrong on that, or is there something different?
It's a little different when you're dealing with closed session minutes. Let me just give a couple examples. The board goes into closed session to talk about setting the sales price for Dorchester. Well, Dorchester's over, right? The deal's done. So there would be no reason to keep those closed session minutes confidential. That could be released to the public. On the other hand, let's assume that there are closed session minutes dealing with litigation that's still pending, labor negotiations that are still pending. Well, of course, we can't release those because it would compromise our bargaining position. Finally, there may be individual employment matters of extreme sensitivity. How do we accommodate employee Smith who has AIDS? Just to give an example of something that would be extremely sensitive that should never be released in the public. So the point is, it's a task that I think in the past the clerk has taken the first crack at it. So you can't just say, well, we'll release all the closed session minutes during the years 2017 and 2018 because each one's got to be microscoped.
See, the problem with this is that we had this with the outgoing board members, and it was presented at the 11th hour. So those minutes were never made privy to the public, because I think when the inauguration of the new board members came in at May 5th, then we couldn't move forward because those board members were no longer members of this board. And Trustee Hinyard would like to be called because she wanted to be a part of the vote. She was disconnected, so she just texted me, if you could please redial her. Trustee Hinyard.
ahead.
I'll defer to trustee Henyard.
I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
I'll defer to trustee Henyard, Mr. Mayor.
No, did you have some comment, trustee Henyard?
Yeah, that was for the executive minutes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Basically, I'm on the end of it. Trustee Muhammad, you asked for a vote to get the executive minutes?
Correct.
Okay. Are they done, clerk?
No.
No, how far, no, how far are you talking back to get executive minutes? Hello?
Good point.
Who, me?
You or trustee,
Well,
you or trustee Muhammad, how far back do you want executive minutes?
Well, it's very difficult to get current minutes. So I would ask the clerk what would be the most expeditious way for her, that it wouldn't be such a laborious task, that she could present those the last 2 years, last year, whatever would be.
It's going to take her 2 years to do it.
I'm asking the clerk, not the mayor, because she would be doing it, Madam Clerk.
Well, there are the first 2 years of your term, trustee Muhammad, that were presented to this board, not at the 11th hour, but in November of 2016, in the absence of any, at the request, by the way, by resolution of the Board of Trustees. I prepared those minutes by a date set by the Board of Trustees, 2 years worth. There were 30-something plus executive session minutes, which I did make available by the deadline. There was no further inquiry from the Board of Trustees, so I took it upon myself to place it on the agenda at the 11th hour. Before that, the exiting trustees finished their terms. The problem is as Mr. Murphy explained, it's not just a matter of my preparing the minutes, which is laborious. It's also a matter of the trustees reading the minutes. And I do not suggest, and I did not suggest then, it was an 11th hour last-ditch effort for the board to take a look at those minutes that I had spent many hours presenting at its direction, to come in and read them so we wouldn't spend an all-nighter in executive session reading them. 3 trustees, including yourself, trustee Muhammad and trustee Stubbs and trustee Pearson, did come in and read them. 3 other trustees did not bother. So I'm reluctant to repeat that experience, as you might understand, but I will do my best to have those minutes, including the outstanding, and as you know, we're about 2 months behind in the open session minutes, those and the closed session minutes. To the best of my ability, I will report back at the next meeting and let you know where we're at, and you can decide to go from there.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
my question is, isn't it protocol that the clerk's supposed to have minutes done every 6 months for executive session?
I'm not sure.
I can answer that. It's the protocol that the Board of Trustees meet every 6 months to review the minutes prepared by the clerk. So in the event that you had done so, we could have done that.
Oh, no. Clerk, you need to do your job. Your job is to have the minutes done for the Board of Trustees. Quit backpedaling and saying what we should have done. You're supposed to do your job, have the minutes, so when the trustees put it on the agenda, the minutes is
Order,
there.
please.
That means you haven't done it for 2
Thank you.
years or however long the trustee Muhammad's asking for. As the new board come in and the old board exits, they're supposed to be able to prove what they said in closed session. He cannot do so if he's gone and you ain't do your job and have any minutes ready for him. That's unacceptable, Mary Kay.
And what was unacceptable to me, trustee Henyard, was when this board passed a resolution directing me to pass 2 years' worth of closed session minutes, which I did prepare and present, and you did not even bother to read them.
I've always read the minutes, and when I read your minutes, I correct you and tell you what it is I actually said.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Up to what you think it is.
All right.
What I'm asking you, so let's get back to what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is your job now. You should have had the minutes prepared because you and Trustee Muhammad wanted to basically approve what he said in the back before they exit. That is what I'm saying. So
Okay.
you have to do your job, clerk, and stay out of everybody else's job or their business and do what you're supposed to do.
That's enough, trustee. That's enough. That's enough, trustee. Trustee.
Hold on, Mayor.
No, okay. You don't have to tell her job. I think she knows her job. Okay. All right. Okay. We're gonna move forward. Where are we at? Where are we at right now?
I think it's simply the board is requesting the clerk to produce as many executive session minutes as she can before the outgoing board members go, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's it.
Okay. All right.
That's fine.
So take your time and get the minutes done as you see appropriate. Right. Where we at? We voting here? Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the mayor's report. Just want to remind you all that there are elections tomorrow.
Mayor, was it a vote for that or not?
No, there's no vote on that.
All right, thanks.
So, there's an election tomorrow. There's a number of offices that are up, school board, library board, several school boards. The trustees that got voted on in the primary, their names will appear on the ballot, but there's no challenges to them for the general election. And that's about it. I want to, we got citizens address. We're going to hold this for 3 minutes so we can get out of here. Okay, anybody want to just come right up here. Right at the podium number. Is that mic on?
Okay, good evening, residents and officers and mayor.
Good evening.
I'd like to, you mentioned the houses, and I'm glad to have come for the first time to your board meeting. But as an investor, I've had a property for about 15 years in Dolton, and I've got to say that you all have done a fine job with your housing and inspections and all, and I appreciate that. However, there is a property that's been vacant for the last 14 years at 14801 Langley.
Right.
And I have a property on Langley. And I would like to know, I had called the housing department to find out, the demolition schedule or what the process was.
One of the things when BP Capital took control over these houses, I would have thought they would have addressed more of the houses that had been vacant for a number of years. But it appears that they addressed the houses that were simple turnovers and they could, get rid of right away. So at any rate, we have rekindled our relationship. I won't say rekindled our relationship, but we have spoke with the sheriff's office. They are going to do an aggressive demolition project here in the village of Dolton.
Okay.
So right now we're identifying some of those houses that have been vacant for a long period of time. We have to have asbestos sampling done, and we're going to go forward with demolition, and we'll make sure that's a priority.
Okay.
I know which house exactly which house you're talking about.
You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I'm very interested in the flea market. For the last 3 years, I worked with the flea market. I was a faithfully worker. I'm retired from the railroad. It gives me something to do. I was just interested in any way that we can retreat the flea market for this year.
Can do what?
Redo the flea market again.
Okay,
for this year.
we're gonna do the flea market this year, but we're gonna do it a little bit different.
Okay.
As you know, we had a shot out there collecting the fees for the different individual spots. What we're doing now, and what we are going to go forward with doing now, is that we want to number all those spots, and you come to the village, you buy your permit at the village that day that you want to work at the flea market. Now we want to go along with individual days and or monthly pass. So if you get a monthly pass, and then we want to work with the police department, where the police department would actually come over and check your permit. And you have to produce that valid permit, otherwise there's going to be a penalty, a ticket that's going to be issued for you not having a proper license for the flea market. So we want to take it out of the hands of a shot, and the reason being is that he would have to be there from the time it was open to the time it was ended. So if you had planned on working the flea market on a Wednesday when it was open and or a Saturday, then you would have to come to the village before Friday or on Friday, purchase your permit for that Wednesday or for that Saturday, or purchase a monthly permit. That way we don't have to have anybody out there policing, waiting for somebody to come and pay their fee. So there's going to be some guidelines that are put out, and we'll put it out on Channel 4 in regards to requirements for being at the flea market.
Are we still going to start at the same time we did last year?
We're going to start at the same time, and we're going to end when we're supposed to.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot.
Because we had some people out there from sun up to sundown, and
I know I was one of them.
yeah. So I'm just going to say for the record is that there's going to be strict enforcement this year. So we want to have it, kind of orderly. Mr. Creighton?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Even though the matter's been tabled, the ordinance number 19007, while you were explaining, I just wasn't able to hear everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this ordinance, I think I heard you say it is, the 1.4 is going directly to Homewood, or is that to pay Homewood?
That's to pay Homewood. What happened was there was a bond in place to pay Homewood because it was delinquent. We were delinquent with Homewood. Okay, that bond money has ran out.
Okay.
Right now they have started billing us, and I think we're about a month behind already that they haven't been paid.
Okay.
So what we're looking to do is renew a bond again so they can be paid, so our garbage won't be infected.
So, in essence, it's going into an account, and all the bills are being drawn from that, or?
It goes into account, and the billing is drawn out on a monthly basis to pay that bill for Homewood disposal.
Okay, so it's not for a set aside a arrearage or anything?
Well, right now, we're in the arrearage probably about a month.
Okay.
Month and a half, something like that.
Okay.
So
But it's kind of parallel like we do the water fund, is money goes in there, and all we pay is the water bill.
the water fund is separate. The water fund is segregated,
Okay.
so we're just going to pay the water out of it.
So this is for a segregated account only to pay Homewood?
Pay trash.
Okay,
Yes.
going forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And at the time that that other bond was in place, it was, which I thought this board understood, or the previous board, that there was going to be another bond issue to go forward so we can stay current with Homewood disposal.
So that's how we are going to pay Homewood from here forward?
That's how we're going to be able to pay Homewood until this bond is extinguished and we figure out a way to bring in more revenue. And one of the ways I thought about was about getting these houses and we sell them instead of BP Capital selling them to generate revenue so we can get out of a bond situation like this. And so we can pay City of Chicago additional revenue.
So we don't pay Homewood out of the general fund, we pay Homewood out of the bond?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And just one final statement about the water shutoffs. I've kind of listened, I understand both sides, and I'm just going to weigh in on it. Even though it may not be the best business practice, it certainly would show benevolence to the community, because the way I'm interpreting, unless I'm wrong, we're talking about delaying a potential shutoff for 3 days.
1 day.
Okay. Well, if I count the weekend, 3 days. So I'm thinking, that's, and if they don't pay it, okay, then they know they're going to get shut off on. But I understand not having water over the weekend. That's just my comment on it.
So every weekend, even though the customer's delinquent for 2 months already or 3 months, you think that's proper practice. And I can understand the benevolent part. But I think the benevolent part comes in with payment plans. If you're delinquent for 3 months or 2 months and now you're eligible, but, that means that every weekend, nobody's water gets shut off.
And if they don't pay it, if they don't pay it on Friday, Monday is cut off.
So the position that it probably would put the water department in is a hurriedly position to make sure those delinquent bills are cut off between Monday and Thursday.
And I understand that. But I'm looking, I'm sorry.
But I think, I think a payment plan is benevolent, which every customer has the right to get into a payment plan,
Well,
so.
and that's just my opinion. I know with some of the gas and waters and other, you're able to say, hey, I know it's going to be cut off today, but can I have to Monday? And sometimes they're lenient in that area, I'm just saying I'm looking for, because if, we've already, from a citizen standpoint.
We're past the 3-minute mark.
Thank you. We've already increased the taxes, and we're looking at another tax increase. I was just looking for some benevolence toward it.
I think if we would take advantage of the opportunities where we could create revenue, then we can get ourselves out of this situation. Go ahead, Ms. Timms.
Good evening to everyone. I'd like to know if we continue to have a housing inspector. Do we have someone?
Yes.
Is it Mr. Johnson?
No, Mr. Johnson left about a month ago. So I moved Brian Thigpen in that position.
Okay, well, I guess I'll have to get in touch with him. I'm in the southernmost part of Dolton, 158th and East End.
Right.
We have, a company there. They're in landscaping business. They have, I don't know how many trucks in the backyard, which that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But they are continuing to burn the debris that they don't take to wherever it is supposed to be disposed of.
No.
They burn. I went home last week. All my windows were down.
Yeah.
And I was choking from the smoke. It was so cloudy.
We've addressed this, or tried to address this. The problem is, and I know exactly what you're talking about, the problem is 2 to 3 doors from them is Dolton. Where they live is unincorporated Cook County.
Cook County. I'm aware of that.
And there's no restrictions, from what I understand, because we tried to enforce it. There's no restrictions as to what they burn there.
Well, I did speak to Mr. Johnson a few months ago, and he had done some research, and somewhere he had seen an article stating that they could not burn debris within 1,000 feet of a residential property.
Okay.
And I'm going to explore that because I'm going to contact the EPA. First, I'm going to start with the state EPA.
Yeah.
If that doesn't help, I'm going to the feds.
Now,
because it's not fair. I have a grandson with asthma.
Yeah, as you well know, that property is a huge parcel.
Yes, it is.
And they purchased an additional parcel
Yes.
in the back. So
Yes.
even if they took their burning stuff way in the back, it would be 1,000 feet from a residential property.
But I can't see how you can open a landscaping business in a residential area and be allowed to burn your debris. We're in that's not a business. We're not commercial. That's not a commercial area.
We have no jurisdiction there. It's unincorporated. Right across the street is Dolton.
I know where it is.
Right
I know.
across
I understand.
three or four houses up is Cal City.
I hear you.
In the back of there is South Holland.
Okay.
And in two houses that's next to them, or 3 houses next to them, is in Dolton, and then the other houses is unincorporated Cook County. Now, depending on the downdraft of when they're burning, whether we're coming to our area, or whether we're flowing to Cal City, or whether we're flowing to South Holland.
I think that's just a tech, Mayor.
We've addressed this, and we've tried to do some enforcement, but it's unincorporated Cook County. And the county would have to take some enforcement. But as far as when we did research it, there was no restrictions from them burning that debris.
I find that so incredibly hard to believe, and I'm going to have to continue with my research because I don't think it's fair. We have seniors there. I'm a senior with asthma and other ailments, and it's just not right. You can't even come outside.
Yeah.
because the smoke is so thick.
I know, I've been there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I'm
We'll
going to
finish
have
the
to
3
contact
minute mark.
someone to see if we can get something done about that because it's horrible. It really is.
Okay. Maybe we can contact one of the county commissioners and see if there's anything that they can do or if they have enforcement, because the county police would have to enforce that.
When I talked to them, they said they pay their water bill $100.
Yes.
That's why then I called them and said, well, no, it's not us, it's Dolton.
Yeah.
I said, no, it's not us.
It's Cook County, but believe it or not, we have at least one house that I know of that is kind of registered in South Holland, but they buy water from Dolton. In an unincorporated area, they buy water from Dolton because there's no water mains that run in that area. So that's where they get access.
Good evening,
Yes, sir.
everybody. My question is about the housing program, and although it seems like it doesn't matter what program comes into play, if they fall by the wayside, we, the taxpayers, are still responsible for it. My question for you, Mayor, is that when the trustees come up with these particular plans for housing programs, what role do you play in reference to helping them to create the plans, or do you play any role at all?
Trustee Henry says she was in my office explaining this to me. I don't recall that, But all I'm saying is that I know that when this board and other boards had the vote, and I can recall one trustee telling me, Mayor, we ain't got to meet with you because we got the vote. What role can I play? I try to look out for the interests of the village and the interests of the residents. And I tell you that, and I thought, when you, and I use this as an example, if you had a house that had some value, would you give it away for free? Well, we just gave, according to the documents, the interest of close to 400 vacant houses off to one developer, free. The village don't get anything for it. And it's like, well, we're going to put it back on the tax rolls. That's going to take a couple of years. But when you're talking about getting the house for free, and then you turn around and you sell it for $147,000, and then that house goes to the attorney's law partner's son.
I understand what you're saying, because I don't want my 3 minutes to be up.
Yeah,
So,
but we'll give you 2 more minutes. But anyway, all I'm saying is that here's an opportunity. You talk about how much debt we're in. Here's an opportunity for us to recover some revenue and get out of debt. And we always want to get a store away. We cannot continue to operate like that. We have to do better. We have to operate within our means. We have to provide customer service. We got to pay our bills, and we got to collect revenue. So I just, and for example here, okay, I'm not, trying to criticize Trustee Henry or trying to do something for the residents. I understand that. But if you're going to try to do something for the residents, why make the residents pay $5,000 and then give the investor a house for free or for $1?
where I'm getting at with this, Mayor, because I don't want to lose my frame of thought,
Go ahead.
and I'll allow you to do your editorial in a minute, but our program, it wasn't a bad program, but again, it seems like majority of the programs that are being put out there, including the BP Capital, Invest Dolton, the block by block, it does seems like they're being rolled out a little bit rapidly without the research being done, and I get that. But as mayor, you also have a responsibility to kind of put an input instead of making it seem as if they're standing on their own. As our mayor, in order for us to all come together, you have to, it seems as if that you should also provide some sort of input. You have resources, you have people that you know of, and if a trustee is wrong, and because I read something online, when I was looking up our meeting for today, it states, caution before going to this particular meeting. Take your boxing gloves and a Xanax before you. I got it right here. But hold on. Let me just finish because my minutes will be up in a minute.
Go ahead.
So, but what I'm saying is because the divisiveness, it definitely has to stop. But as mayor, you do have a responsibility to your trustees, and your trustees, given they do have one to you. But isn't it about time now that instead of being divisive or divisive in reference to what's going on, that, you know, you might go to Trustee Henyard and say, well, Trustee Henyard, instead of going about it this way, before we roll that out, why don't you look at this? Why don't you do that? From my understanding, it seems like you're just hearing them, but you're not giving any input. And that's what I'm reading. That's what I'm getting right now. And I understand that you've had a very divisive board thus far. But in retrospect, and now looking ahead, you know, you have a role to play too, because regardless to what anybody think, you have been here 2 terms. Okay? And regardless to your 2 terms of being here, you are the mayor, and you still have to have some sort of positive input with your trustees, because eventually it's going to get to the point where is everybody going to get tired of hearing what the mayor has to say. Everybody can't be against you. Hold on.
I didn't say
everybody can't be against you, and you've had 2 totally different staffs. So, but what I'm saying, Mayor, is why don't you encourage that young lady, or encourage whoever it is that's trying to come up with something, because it seems like they're trying to come up with programs, but, excuse me, but you're knocking them down. So all I'm saying is, you have resources, and I know you have resources. Why not help?
We're past the 5-minute mark.
Okay. So when I gave some input on giving these houses away, that wasn't input. When I gave some input of, if you want to help these residents, why don't you give them a house for $1 instead of $5,000? You know, that's not input. Just see, I'm not getting upset, but apparently you missed that. Apparently you missed that. So all I'm saying is that if you want to help the residents, that's your intent of helping the residents, why not get a resident the house for $1?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, why don't you give her input? See, you're letting her do it on her own. It doesn't seem like you're...
Okay, ma'am, your time was at the podium. Ma'am, your time is up.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is that, you know, up here it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. If they got the numbers, they vote against 100% of what I try to put in place or try to ask them to put in place. And I always look at where the village lies with liability when I make my decisions. That's what I look at. Because even though, and you know this board has sued us and cost us money, you know, so even though if we win the case, but we're looking at the money, we still lose because of money we got to pay the attorney. So I just kind of look at, this is like a mom and pop store. We have to bring in revenue. We have to bring in revenue to survive. And there's a number of ways to bring in revenue. We could have so we could.
That is where you have to provide input as well.
I'm not tearing every idea down. I have provided many of idea here. And I'm going to say this. If the residents didn't have confidence in me, they would have not voted me into a second term. So that's all I'm saying. I have not been able to do anything here for 6 years. 6 years. We're behind. We're way behind. Order, trustee. Order, trustee. Chief.
Order, please.
I haven't been able to do anything for 6 years because I never had to vote. And the thing is, go to any of these other towns. Go to any of these other town meetings. It's just to take a look at what mayors are able to do. There's not one town that has an ordinance in place that the mayor cannot hire or terminate anyone without consent and advice of the board. You think I just want to fire people for not doing a job? I'm a very easygoing person. Let me tell you what, I've had jobs, they told me what I needed to do and I did it. That's to keep my job and to make sure the job was done. Now, I'm a firm believer that I don't fire you, you fire yourself. You fire yourself. If you know your job and you don't know your job, you find out your job and you get trained for it, and or you get terminated. Some people have jobs for 15, 16, 20 years, 30 years. Because apparently they got through them 30 years by doing their job. So I'm not, I don't ride people on their jobs. If you lose your job, you lost your.
Can we talk about this later? Because I know this lady here wants to finish, but I need to speak to you on something anyway.
Ms. Creighton, go ahead, Ms. Creighton.
Thank you for public participation. What I have to say, good evening. You know what? I'm offended that the officers come up when we want everybody that don't agree with what's being stated to come up. This is public participation, and we are residents in the village of Dolton. My concern, my question to the trustees as well as the mayor and the attorney this evening, concerning the water bill payment. I get up, my comment and concern is still the same. If we want, make sure that the technology that we have in our village, in the system, can talk to each other so that there's no misprints, no wrong addresses, no nothing, so that we can be updated to the 21st century, it would help. Also, had not the water bills, Mary Kay, maybe you know this, been the same that we pay every 3 months since the village of Dolton has been in existence?
The water bills, as you know, Mrs. Creighton, I'm sure, are billed quarterly.
Yes.
And the rates have increased since 2009. I'm
Yes.
sorry, since 2013. They did not increase before then.
Right.
And that, there's the water, the sewage, and the garbage pickup. The bills that have been passed by the board, the increases that have been passed by the board are a reflection of the increases passed on to the village by the city of Chicago. Does that answer your question?
That did not. My question was that the bills you say quarterly, correct? Have they not been in existence
Quarterly?
since the village of Dolton has been established?
Quarterly billing.
Yes, quarterly billing. We can increase, we've increased the taxes.
I'm sorry.
So we've increased the taxes to accommodate some of that loss or that deficit that we're in. But as long as the 37 years I've been in Dolton, that the bills have been quarterly, correct?
For 37 years, for sure. I can't speak to the incorporation of the village.
Well, okay, right, I'm just saying.
Not that long, but yes, as long as I can remember, sure.
Exactly. That's all I wanted to know, because everyone, you keep saying it makes a difference. It'll make a difference. We got to pay Chicago. We got to pay Chicago. But understand that we've increased the taxes. I'm just trying to get a clarification. Whether we pay it quarterly or we pay it monthly is still the same, is it not?
No. All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourn.
Is there a second? Second motion. Okay, we got two motions.
Motion by trustee House, second by trustee Denton. Trustee Muhammad.
Aye.
Trustee Stubbs.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Aye.
Trustee Denton. Trustee Henyard. Absent, okay. Yeah.
This meeting's adjourned.